Hello and welcome back to Copic in the craft room. We have our third week actually on the exact same image. I was answering some requests of some videos in real time so that I am not speeding up super fast the coloring. And in the first week we got all of the skin tones done, and in the second week we got the hair and a little bit of clothing done. This week I am to finish this off, so I may have to do some speeding up. This was also answering a request for one of the female group of friends from Art Impressions. So I think you're ready to be done with this one. I assume you are. I know I am as well. So let's go ahead and get coloring, and I will probably speed up this time a little bit and get all of this done for you. All right? So I've added a touch of speed. I did this by double, so I am moving a little bit faster this time. I'm filling that first shirt in, this next shirt in with B60 to get that base coat, and I'm getting a nice even saturation, so using small circles, and then I'm coming in with my next color, B63, and I'm dotting that color in. Now notice, I'm still using the brush nib, but these are bigger dots. I'm pressing down a little bit more, and because it's on the wet ink, they're already kind of blended. B66 is going to add another layer of dots, and this time, obviously, I'm focusing, or maybe not so obvious, but I'm focusing into the areas that would be darker, just to give that texture. Going back to B60, to soften that up. So again, I'm dabbing the color in. That's the best word I can think of. I'm kind of doing these large dots on top of it to soften those colors. And then I'm going to use the colorless blender to even soften further and also to lighten a little bit. I'm pushing back a little bit because I added the ink so quickly and it was so wet. It did bleed out a little bit of the bottom. So I'm fixing that up a little bit with E53 on her skin tone because that's, I know, what I used on her. And then I am coming back in with B63 to color up her little shoes. Everyone's shoes are going to match their tops, and her earring. And B66 to add a little bit of shading. Just a touch. And then B63 to smooth that out again. And then I'm looking for the next group of colors. RV32 is what I'm starting to base the next shirt with. And I'm going to get her shirt. Again, small circles, slowing down as I approach those edges, and her little shoes, and then her hat. Kind of going down the brim of the cap and also one of the stripes. RV34 is what I'm using for the shading on this third top. Coming in from the back, the underside of the arm. She's tucked in behind that gal, so even we have that shadow coming from the front of her as well because she's tucked behind the other person. Back edge of the cap, a little bit on the bill of the cap. Softening that with RV32, so blending that edge. I'm doing some small circles and flicks on the edge of the darker color and flicking it into the lighter color to blend those two together. And then E13 for the wrist, because of course I did not do a very good job on this one either. The shirts obviously gave me fits, probably because I was working so fast here trying to get this stuff done for you guys. I did end up with having to do some corrections on pretty much everybody. And then I am switching over to a brand new set of colors for our fourth shirt. I've got a V05 that I am basing this gal's shirt with and going all the way across. Getting that all filled in with that nice even base coat. And I'm going to go ahead and hit her little shoes as well with that V05. I've got V09, which is a pretty extreme jump, and you can see that when it gets laid down, so I'm being pretty cautious about how much I lay down. I hit her earring with that V09 as well, coming from under the arm, out across, coming under the chest area, trying to add kind of the roundness of the shape. And then I'm back with the V05, and I realized pretty quickly, even though I'm circling and blending, and it is softening the effect, but it's not a smooth transition from one into the next. I can push it around, and I'm going to get a nice blurred line. It's not going to be like super crisp, but I decided I needed another color in between. So I've got a V06, and I'm pulling that from on the V09 out onto that V05, and it's making a huge difference, just adding that one step in between. So pulling that across, rounding her out a little bit more and softening those edges. Now again, because I've added another color and I've worked this area pretty hard, I do have some bleeding happening again. So V05 went back in for that last layer, and then I'm going to come in with a Y13, and that is going to be our bike frame. And I'm going to start with that, and I'll add some more as I find pieces that I feel like are going to need that. I did the seat for now, but I'm going to change that here eventually. Y17 is going to be some shading, and really all I'm doing is running that right down the edge away from the light source as best I can figure out. I'm not trying to flick, I'm truly just drawing a line. And then I realized, oh, there's some fenders on this bike, so I came back with my Y13 again and got those fenders taken care of. The front wheel, it's just in the back of that wheel. And then Y17, it goes on the inside to the front half and the outside edge to the back half, showing that round shape and where that light source is coming from. And then I grab a warm gray W1, and all of their pants are going to be white. So I appreciate that's probably not the most sensible thing when you're bike riding, but that's what they are wearing. So they've got a W1 that's going to kind of come in from that back edge and show that depth. So W1 to start, back leg, underside. This gal on the back of the bike is going to have a little bit to the front of her legs as well, just because remember where that light source is coming from, and she's facing the opposite direction. Hitting that a second time, I'm still with my W1, but by hitting it a second time, some of those areas will get a little darker. Re-emphasize that a little bit, and then come back with the colorless blender. I'm doing small circles right up to that W1, and that is going to soften it so it fades right into white. That's one of the things I love about working with the grays. They soften so easily into white. It just makes our job a whole lot easier. W3 is next, and I'm going to start on those tires. The area that I think is going to be the lightest is all I'm hitting. I'm not trying to fill in the tires. The tires are pretty small, so I don't need a ton of ink. And so I really am just touching down on those areas that I want to have gray, including the tires and that little shelf seat. W5 is next. I'm going to hit the chain of the bike. So come through and kind of hit that. It's on the other side. And then do some work on the wheels, coming in around that highlight area. And I'm obviously overlapping some, but leaving a little bit of that highlight just showing through. Hitting those petals, or that petal that we see. Again, you can hopefully see kind of what I'm doing with the shading here. On the front half of the wheel, facing the light, the front edge stays lighter. On the back half of the wheel, away from the light source, again, the front edge of that area stays lighter. So hopefully it's giving us that real good sense of volume. W7 is next, and this is really going to push that home because it is a black rubber tire. So I'm trying to get it even darker. You can tell at this point I'm really just running a thin line through those areas. You can kind of see where the front and the back kind of overlap a little bit for that shading. I'm literally dotting tiny dots on that chain just to give it a little bit of texture. And I go ahead and decide to darken up that seat, that little shelf seat the back lady's sitting on. It's going to take care of some of my bleeding issues from the shirt, and that'll help that. A little bit on the handlebar. Then W5, I'm going to go back and start blending those tires together because right now they just look like they're striped. Smoothing that out a little bit. So I'm coloring kind of right across that seam between the colors. So I'm not trying to do a lot of circles or flicks this time. I'm really just coloring right on that edge of the W7, and it's going to soften that edge. W3 at the end, I'm going over my highlight areas, and you can start to really see how that's just pulling that in and blending that in together. Just really effective and easy to do. W3 again, I decide I really don't want the seat to be yellow, so I've added that and a little bit of W5 to add some shape. Going back for a couple markers, and because I realized that I have a shoe and a leg that I did not color. So that RV34 and then the E13, because as I'm coloring the wheel, I realize, oh, there's another foot back here. So I get those colored in. W5 is what I'm going to start on this basket. So I'm getting good use out of my warm grays today. I'm going across and kind of hitting the back edge of each of those vertical slats and then the bottom edge of each of those horizontal slats. And you can see the W5 really does already add some dimension. And then what I do is I come in with the W1 and I kind of flick that color across some of those areas that I know would be shaded kind of in between the vertical slats and underneath that top horizontal and then across the top horizontal. And what that does is it softens the W5 and adds a ton of dimension really simply. So very little work to get that finished up. I have a little E04 to fill her mouth, and I think we're done. So we've got one image colored up. You got a chance to see me obviously make some mistakes, and I still have some cleanup work to do around the edges of the shirts and a couple little spots. If I go in and do a background or either cut this out, some of those edges will clean up, but obviously around this darker purple, I had some bleeding, and even around this lighter purple. So I'll do a little cleanup there and be ready to put this image on a card. Thank you again, and as always, for joining me on Copic and the Craft Room on YouTube. If you have enjoyed this video or have gotten some useful information out of it, I would sure appreciate if you go back and like our channel. We are trying to gather viewers, as most YouTube channels are. We would also love to see you, I would love to see you over at Copic and the Craft Room on Facebook, where we have a ton more Copic inspiration, all sorts of photo tutorials and links to inspirational blogs where you're going to find a lot of Copic good stuff. Make sure to include questions and requests down below. I will do my best to answer those as quickly as possible and also to honor those requests because I am always listening for you guys. Thank you again for joining me this week. Have a happy, colorful week.